You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Good evening, Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Midland, Odessa, Dallas, Fort Worth, down in Houston, over in El Paso, and anywhere else inside or outside the great state of Texas, wherever you may be listening. Welcome into the Chad Hasty Show. Glad to have you with us, as it's going to be a busy Monday. We have a lot to get into, a lot to talk about on the program. We also have a fun little running topic that we'll be getting in and out of throughout the show. We do have 3 different guests scheduled to join us coming up at 5:35. The former Lieutenant Governor of California, Abel Maldonado, will join us coming up at 5:35 to discuss Kamala Harris and the Trump-Harris battle royale. We'll get into that with him coming up at 5:35. State Representative Dustin Burrows will join the program at 6:05 to talk about the State Fair of Texas banning guns in a big letter that he has sent with about 70 signatures on it to the State Fair of Texas. We'll talk about that. And Scott Braddock joins the program at 6:35 this evening to get us caught up with some of the news making, or some of the headlines making news across the state of Texas. So we've got all of that to get to on the program today. We've also got a lot of news to weave in and out of during the program, including new polling data. And as one story puts it, one of the Drudge headlines, the fastest, quote, vibe shift in modern political history. And this is the media. I'm telling you, you don't even have to search that hard to see where the media has lined up and how they have lined up for Kamala Harris. Even over the weekend, people saying that the news media portraying Kamala Harris's campaign as one of joy against Donald Trump's fear campaign. Kamala Harris coming out in favor of getting rid of taxes on tips, and even Joe Biden coming out in favor of that today. Yeah, if only Joe Biden were president and Kamala Harris were vice president, and they could have submitted this proposal years ago, but they never did. Not until Trump did it, and not until it became popular after Trump suggested it. Now Kamala Harris is all on board, and Joe Biden's on board, and CBS News, which had questioned the Trump tax cut for tips, now they're on board as well because of Kamala Harris. So we've got all of that to get to on the program today. Some very interesting polling data out when it comes to the swing states. Nothing good if you're a Republican. Nothing good if you're Trump. Looking at the swing states right now, but there is time to turn all of this around. There is time. I told you a couple of weeks ago, this is going to be a long month for Republicans, a long month for Donald Trump, as the honeymoon phase is expected to last until Labor Day. That's a long time. That is a long time. When, remember, the Democrats won't even have their convention until next week. And the news media, they're not going to get upset with Kamala this week. I mean, unless something crazy just happens, they're not going to get upset with Kamala here. So we're going to have probably another week of great coverage for Kamala Harris and horrendous coverage for Donald Trump. Most likely, that's how it'll play out. And the polling just gets worse for Donald Trump. Now, some people out there, and I've seen them, I've gotten the tweets, I've gotten the text from people. On one hand, you have some people that I know, they're not worried at all. They think this is going to be a slam dunk win. And then I hear from other people who go, this is worrisome. People have got to be worried. This is not a long election. People will start voting at least in some states, late September. Did you know that? Did you know that some early voting actually begins in late September? So, while November seems like it's far away, and it may be temperature-wise, while November seems like it may be far away, actual votes will be cast next month in some states. So Kamala Harris, she doesn't have to run a long campaign. This is good news for Kamala Harris. She doesn't have to stay in this long and then have a self-destructive. She's only got to hold on until November. She's only got to hold on and not completely self-destruct for a couple of months. And so we'll get into that on the program today. And yes, I've gotten text messages about the battle over crowd sizes, and it's some of this AI generated. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that because guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not going to. I'll just put it this way: you're not going to convince anyone out there, at least on the other side, that Kamala Harris has AI generated crowds. And there are a lot of people who are going to kind of look at you and go, "Stop it! Just stop! Don't even go there." If you're going to beat Kamala Harris, and if you are someone who wants Trump to beat Kamala Harris, this is not going to be a race where you debate crowd sizes and you win on that. It's going to be about policy. Let's see. Texture, Republicans say wait till the honeymoon is over for Harris. What will cause it to stop? Honestly, I think it'll stop maybe around the first debate. I think maybe if there's going to be a pause in the honeymoon, it will happen around the first debate. Once Kamala Harris starts to wobble a little bit and not be perfect on a teleprompter, that's when it'll happen. If I'm Kamala Harris, listen, I know that only Fox News is complaining about Kamala Harris not doing any interviews. The rest of the media doesn't care. If I'm running the Kamala Harris's campaign, I'm not doing any interviews. I'm not doing interviews. I'm not doing one-on-ones. I'm not doing anything because the press is going along with it. Only Fox News is mad at Kamala Harris, and most Fox News viewers, they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris. They are running this perfectly. They are running this perfectly on the Kamala Harris side. She is playing this perfectly. The Democrats have played this perfectly. And Trump, he's got to focus on policy, and they've got to hammer away at policy on Kamala Harris. Another texter, we should be worried. It wasn't a slam dunk with Biden. The sketchy biased media is in the tank for Harris. There isn't much time left to reveal how bad she is. Democrats just thankful they don't have to vote for a corpse. We have to beat Harris by more than the margin of cheating, and it's not going to be easy. 806-680-2790. You can text in, sound off on anything that you'd like to talk about today. I want to hear from you. Are you worried yet about Kamala Harris? You can text in about that, 806-680-2790. You can also give us a call at any time, 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790. The first voice you hear from when you dial in today, he had to go on a search earlier to see if I was even here because I boarded myself up in my office today, and I wasn't seen by anyone. Nick, who was very worried about me earlier today. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing okay. You had your adoring fans here in the offices. They kept asking about you.
Yeah.
I'd pass by and they'd try to catch whispers of your whereabouts.
Yeah.
But to no avail. They didn't know.
I was hiding.
I know. You did a good job.
Thank you.
They didn't find you. I didn't look, but I didn't find you.
Yeah. We just happened upon each other in the hallway, and you're like, "Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Okay, you're safe. Okay."
Yeah. So in my normal Monday doings here, I happen to stumble upon it's Middle Child Day today. Now, these always confuse me.
Middle Child Day.
Because it's not national, it's not international, it's just Middle Child Day.
Right.
So global, I guess,
sure.
everywhere in the world. And every year growing up, I wanted to be the middle child. I don't know if that's normal. Because I have an older sister, and she's 3.5 years older than me.
Right.
And it was just the two of us that I know of. It's just me and her.
Yeah.
So I always wanted a little brother that I could pick on,
so
annoy,
you could beat up on. Okay.
Bully. Yeah, and I was that.
Yeah.
And I wanted one.
Right.
I wanted to have one.
You wanted to take your fury out on someone.
Right. My natural fury that I harbor.
Yes.
But I never got it. And I'm always really sad about that. So I just, what is the ideal, what do you think the ideal family size is? Is 3 too many kids? Do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it depends on. I think everyone's answer is a little bit different.
Yeah, because I feel like when you like the standard American family.
Yeah.
Is what 4.
I think it's gone down a lot now.
Really?
I think it's gone down a lot. I mean, you look at birth rates around the United States.
Yeah.
And they're down. So I would say it's 1 or 2
kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would think that's kind of what you're seeing a lot of right now in the United States. If I had to get now, of course, I'm an only child.
Yeah.
I was very happy being an only child.
Really?
Oh yeah.
You never wanted siblings?
No.
Ever?
I never went to my parents and went, y'all better not have any kids. I never did that.
But you were content with where you were.
Yeah.
Really?
I think most only children that you meet were they would say they were very content, very happy. We could do things on our own.
Yeah.
We were fine. I have never been had that awkward feeling of going to the movies alone.
Yeah.
Like I've spoken to other people who have brothers and sisters, and they're like you because there have been times where I've just go to a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, you go to the movies alone? And I'm like, yeah. What's the big deal?
You've never just been bored?
No.
And you've just playing outside as a kid or something and just alone.
We had neighborhood kids. Kids.
Real, but then you go home and it's just you.
Yeah, it's fine.
Just nobody. You just go home and you.
I had a TV. I had a when the Nintendo came out. I had the Nintendo.
Yeah.
I played outside. I had homework. No, I was never. If you were to ask my parents, never was I. Even when I was bored, my parents would roll their eyes and be like, "Do you want to go see all the stuff in your room?
Yeah.
Because you're clearly not bored."
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Interesting. I just always.
And today, as an only child, how could you be bored? As any
true.
child today, how could you be with all the stuff that you have?
Yeah.
How could you be bored?
I think it also depends on the parents as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes my sister would be gone, and it was as if I was an only child. I'd just be home alone, and both my parents were working, so sometimes I'd just be home alone. Or if it was just one parent with me, and then it also you got to work with the parents' schedules as well. So I mean, I had some friends, but there's nothing like a sibling to really just pester and form some trauma along the way.
She had some cousins where we did that too. We would form trauma
that's
that
good.
way.
That's a good family bonding.
Good.
Yeah.
But no, it was just there was a neighborhood group of guys.
Yeah.
And we always hung out, and, after school, we'd play a little basketball. We'd play there was across the street, from the house. It was an empty lot. It was great. 2 empty lots, actually. And so we played football out there. It was fantastic. That's what you did as a kid.
Interesting.
If the ball would roll into the street, someone go for it. If a car hits you, you bounce up. You're good. You're fine.
Because your youthful bones, you're
sure,
good.
You're fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. Childhood was great. And as an only child, see, when I got married, I had to learn to share. I had to learn to share food and share other, because as an only child, didn't have to share, didn't have to do any of that. Nope. So yeah, had to learn how to do that. And then, it's like, other people eating after you and stuff. Mm-hmm. If they wanted stuff on your plate, and I'm like, no.
Yeah. Get your own.
Right.
I'm an only child.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to learn how to deal with that.
Weird. It's just so fascinating to me, because
going out to a restaurant by myself. I'm good.
You just, as a kid?
Well, not as a kid.
Okay, good.
But it was like it was one of those where I was a very independent child.
Yeah, and I was
a very different child growing up.
My mom was an only child as well, and that independence sounds very common. Yeah, I think that's when you're an only child, what else do you have to perfect your independence?
I had a dog.
There you go.
Numerous dogs. Yeah, no, I was never bored. Let me tell you. I had a great imagination, too. One child never gets away with anything. That's true. That I never got away with anything. 2, you will never know who's responsible. 3 children, 1 will get punished if they did it or not. It'll always be 2 against 3. Yeah, see, I never got away with anything. I could never get away with it. And then when I got my truck, I put Flowmasters on the truck. Well, then I could never get home late because my parents' bedroom was right next to the driveway, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together that they would hear the truck, rolling in. And, so I could never even sneak in late because my parents would be right there. My dad would be up right there going, well, son, you finally made it home, huh? 806-680-2790. You can send in your text messages, getting a lot of them coming in. When we come back, your phone calls, your text, and much more.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, the Trump ground game. What is it looking like? And is the Trump campaign beginning to turn the numbers back in their favor? We'll look at the latest polling. Plus, our friend Glenn Beck has an incredible new book out. We'll talk to him about that. But also, what's going to happen to the country? Because something that Glenn focuses on a lot is the future. We'll talk to him about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
All right, back on the Chad Hasty Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. Let's see, texter, I suspect that Harris may have intentionally stolen the primary shortly before Biden stepped out. She was saying Biden fully was up to the task. Now reports indicate she was part of the group pressing Biden to bow out. She could have won a primary, but after she lied and helped show win, she pushed him out and got his endorsement dirty. You don't have to suspect that Harris intentionally stole a primary. She did, yes. I mean, she had a lot of help. It wasn't just her. It was the Democrat Party. Let me tell you something. If they didn't have $200 million on the line, Kamala Harris would not have gotten the nomination. If they could have put him, if they could have thrown him overboard sooner, Kamala Harris would not have been the nominee. But because they needed to keep the campaign war chest going, and because she's, the DEI candidate, they didn't want to tick off any constituency, they had to go with Kamala Harris. And so they surrounded Kamala Harris. And remember, she was the most unpopular vice president in history. The Democrats were not even fans of Kamala Harris. Now you can't find a Democrat who will question her. I mean, they have completely remade Kamala Harris. So, no, it wasn't just Kamala Harris who stole the primary, but it was the Democrat Party at large who took it away from Joe and handed it to Harris. Another texter, Robert, with Kamala's track record the last 3.5 years, wouldn't you be worried? Says Robert says he's worried. When we come back, we'll talk more about Harris, Trump, campaign moving forward here on the Chad Hasty Show.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790.
Mama, what does the chicken say? Dog. Cat. Giraffe.
Giraffe, really? Giraffe.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right.
Visit NHTSA.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We live Texas. We breathe Texas. The landmarks, the swagger, and the lore make us who we are. We devour the tastes and the smells of our state. You just might say there's something in the air. So do your part to help protect it. Keep your tires at the correct pressure and avoid idling at drive-thrus. Both help reduce emissions. For tips, visit drivecleantexas.org. Drive clean, Texas. Live and breathe it. Brought to you by TxDOT.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. You're listening to The Chad Hasty Show.
Welcome back to The Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you tuning in today. And yes, we're talking the 2024 campaign. Kamala Harris, the media in love with Kamala Harris. Her polling numbers continue to skyrocket. You've got a big interview that's going to be going down on X this evening with Elon Musk and Donald Trump and a whole lot of other news out there as well that we'll be getting into throughout the show. We've got Chairman Dustin Burrows who will be joining us at 6:05. Joining us on the phones right now, the former Lieutenant Governor of California, Abel Maldonado, joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you today?
How are you, Chad? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Hope all is well with you.
Well, things are going great. Of course, paying attention to this 2024 campaign, and I'm glad that we have you on with us today because I want to get from you just some of your thoughts on who the real Kamala Harris is, because according to the news media, she's not the most unpopular vice president that we've ever seen. In fact, the news media absolutely loves Kamala Harris, and it seems as though she's perfect in every way, according to the national press.
Chad, it's really amazing. As you know, I was a lieutenant governor of California here. I was the last Republican lieutenant governor in California. And I had a front row seat to Kamala Harris. And I can honestly just share with you that she is so liberal. And I think GovTrack said that to us. GovTrack made a point that Kamala Harris is more liberal than Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders, as you know, is a devout socialist. So it gives you a flavor of what we have in Kamala. And I've known her for, over 15 years, and I've served with her. And I think that one of the questions that I would ask your listeners is, if you know California, Chad, we got beaches, agriculture, Yosemite, Napa, Disneyland. I can go on and on and on. This state has it all. It's a beautiful state. Why would Californians leave this? Kamala Harris. She's been at the top of the government for the last, 10, 12, 15 years?
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate.
I heard you speaking, it was a few days ago. You were speaking in Nevada and introducing J.D. Vance, and it was a way you were speaking before J.D. Vance took the stage, and you talked about Proposition 47, which I don't believe has really gotten a lot of news nationally. But tell us about this and what Kamala Harris has to do with Proposition 47 in California.
Chad, for us in California, we can discuss Proposition 47 because we lived through it. People outside our state don't know what it is, and thank you for this opportunity. Proposition 47 was pretty simple. We're going to allow people in California to steal as long as it's under $950. If you don't get caught, go to the next store, steal $950. You can go out to the next one, steal $950. Nothing will happen to you. My wife was robbed in Los Angeles. We called the police department. They were like, I'm sorry, Laura, you shouldn't be dressing nice. Laura says, it's my birthday. I'm sorry, you can't dress nice here. They'll rob you in Los Angeles. It's just what we have. And I know it's unbelievable to say. I hate knocking my home state, Chad. It is what we have. And Kamala Harris has been at the top of that. Proposition 57 was another proposition. She allowing, making misdemeanors of felonies. It's just absurd. It's what we live with every day. And back how you open your show, Chad, on the media, just giving her a free pass. Just so you know, in California, if you're a Democrat politician, you don't talk to the press. You tell the press, send me an email and I'll answer your questions via email, and I'll do an interview on TV or radio whenever I want, not when you want. So we're normal to this. America's not normal to this, and she's trying to take advantage of this. She doesn't want to do any interviews. Why? She doesn't want to be called to the carpet on her issues. Number one. Number two, she probably can't answer the question. And number three, in California, only an elitist politician can say, I'm not going to answer your question, and a reporter's got to take it. It's unbelievable.
So how does Trump, how do the Republicans, how do we reverse what we're currently seeing right now? How do we reverse the trend?
Chad, I think there's so much out there on Kamala Harris that I think we need to let her talk with her own words, what she's talked in the past. I mean, for example, on the death penalty in California, the death penalty was legal in California until we had Gavin Newsom come in. But we had a woman, I want to just share this with you because this is very important. We had a woman who had her husband and her two sons shot and murdered in San Francisco by a MS-13 gang member, Edwin Ramos. Now, Danielle Bologna came to my office and said, I need your help because Kamala wouldn't even give me an opportunity to talk about the death penalty for this criminal. And it goes back, and I said, Danielle, what's the problem? What happened before? She said, Abel, this man robbed a woman. Kamala Harris prosecuted, let him go, didn't turn him to INS. 2 months later, he robbed another woman. She was pregnant, knocked her down. Kamala Harris didn't call the INS, Immigration, ICE, until the third time she killed my husband. This guy killed my husband and my two children. And, they reluctantly called the INS on this person. But when I asked her for the death penalty, she said no. Not even allowing me to tell my case. She just said no because Kamala Harris doesn't care. Didn't care about me. doesn't care about victims. And that's who we have at the top of the ticket. And I think one thing else, Chad, is very important, is that nobody knows Tim Walz. Kamala Harris supported sanctuary cities for San Francisco. Tim Walz supported sanctuary cities for the state of Minnesota. Not even for one city, for the whole state. It is the most liberal ticket in America, and I hope people can find out and do their due diligence and see what's coming at them.
We're visiting with the former Lieutenant Governor of California, Abel Maldonado, here on the Chad Hasty Show. Before I let you go, if Kamala Harris has no platforms listed on her website, she has no issues, she's got nothing. Now she's in favor of not taxing tips for workers, even though the IRS increase would actually go after, that she supported would actually go after workers who did not report tips. So she goes back and forth on a lot of things, it seems. If she and Tim Walz are elected and they are in the White House, I mean, what do you believe that looks like for this country over the next 4 years?
Look up San Francisco. Just go online and look up San Francisco. San Francisco, in my mind, is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Go look at it. Zombies walking on the street, loaded up on drugs, urinating on the street, feces on the street, cars, broken windows. If you leave anything in your car, your window's broken. So just look at San Francisco. And if Kamal, I want to put this diplomatically, why would anybody let their city or their state look like San Francisco? Don't let Kamala do to your city what she did to San Francisco and to California. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Abel Maldonado, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we can speak again soon. I think you're one of the voices that the Trump folks need to get out in front of more people. You know Kamala Harris a lot more than what most people do, and I appreciate you joining us and telling us about her background.
Chad, I'll come on anytime you want. You have my number. Have a wonderful day.
All right, you too. Thank you so much. That's the former Lieutenant Governor of California, Abel Maldonado, here on the Chad Hasty Show. When we come back, your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at KFYO.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, the Trump ground game. What is it looking like? And is the Trump campaign beginning to turn the numbers back in their favor? We'll look at the latest polling. Plus, our friend Glenn Beck has an incredible new book out. We'll talk to him about that. But also, what's going to happen to the country? Because something that Glenn focuses on a lot is the future. We'll talk to him about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you being out there today. Let's see, some text messages coming in. I have one of 7 kids. My wife is one of 11. Together we have 6. I feel like a freak show. Let's see. Texture, President Harris is a clueless bully who will not do her homework, refuses to read the highly classified daily presidential brief. Its basic responsibility of the job as president. She's not president yet. She's not president yet. Who knows who's really running things? Have you seen videos of Jill lately? Who knows who's actually running the Oval Office? Another texter, sadly, Democrats are just better at politics than Republicans. When the texter says playing the game, that the Democrats are cutthroat. Once the Democrats have converged and decided what to do, they will act as one unit moving forward. Republicans, you see this in the legislature all the time. Republicans, they'll come together for about 15, 20 minutes, and then you'll have different factions warring against each other. When what needs to happen right now is for Republicans to, again, come together and get ready for a fight, because it's going to be a fight nationally. Let's go to the phones, and we've got Jim in Lubbock. Jim, what's going on?
Well, I'm naming Kamala Harris now cowardly Kamala Harris. So we're going to have a debate on Fox on the 4th or 5th.
Well, probably not.
So she's still running, hiding like Biden, lying and crying like Biden.
Well,
we need to call her out.
They've agreed to a debate on September 10th on ABC. So there will be a debate, at least one debate. They're looking at another debate on the 24th. Kamala Harris refuses to do a debate on Fox News, which, Trump, he's agreeing to do a debate just about everywhere. You can see where normally Republicans should be very worried about doing a debate on ABC News, seeing the history of ABC and how they've handled Trump. But if anyone can handle moderators, it's been Donald Trump. Normally, it's when you have Republican candidates get on there, the moderators take over and they defend the Democrats on this stuff. So if you're Kamala Harris, you're not losing any points by not doing a Fox News debate. She doesn't have to. And if you're the Kamala Harris campaign right now, you got to feel pretty good about where you are. And why go on Fox News at this point when most of those watching the Fox News debate, they ain't going to vote for you anyway?
Well, here we go. It's time to turn up the pressure to do debates in front of more evenly spread moderators who are not that biased. Turn it up. Just get the pressure. Hey, she's scared. Trump and his team needs to be out on X tonight on buying ads. Why are you afraid to debate in front of somewhat unbiased moderators so we can get a fair thing? Don't keep agreeing to everything they say. Start turning up the pressure.
Yeah. And let's be honest, Brad Bear and Martha McCallum, I'd say they're pretty fair. They're pretty right down the middle when they do one of these debates. They're pretty good at what they do.
When you say that, is that the ABC moderators?
No, that's Fox News. Those are the Fox. Brett Baer and Martha McCallum on Fox News. They're pretty good.
Here's what you do. I'm serious. They got all this money coming in to buy campaign ads, and Trump's got all the free access to media. Yeah, I'll do a daily press conference since that's what Mar-a-Lago reporters ask. We'll do this 10 minutes a day. Show up for debate. Let's discuss ideas. Let's see where we're going with this country.
Well, Trump
don't want to hold you hostage, Chad.
I appreciate the call. Trump has said if Kamala Harris doesn't do a debate on the 4th, I think that's when the Fox News deal was supposed to be. If she doesn't do it, he'll do a town hall. And hey, that's good for Trump if he does a town hall. It's getting him in front of more people, and that could be he's pretty good in these town hall forums that he does. He's pretty good in those. 806-680-2790. The reason she doesn't want to do a debate on Fox is she won't get the questions in advance. That's true. You can send in your thoughts on the text line 806-680-2790. By the way, the FBI announcing they're probing an alleged Iranian hack attempt against Trump and the Biden camps. The FBI investigating suspected hacking attempts by the Iranians targeting both a Trump associate and advisors to the Biden-Harris campaign, according to people familiar with the matter. The agency formally acknowledged it Monday that it's opened up a high-stakes national security investigation months before the election. 3 staffers on the Biden-Harris campaign received phishing emails that were designed to appear legitimate but could have given an intruder access to recipients' communications, according to people familiar with the matter. The FBI investigation began in June, suspecting Iran was behind the attempts to steal data from 2 presidential campaigns. Agents contacted Google, among other companies, to discuss what appeared to be a phishing effort targeting people associated with the Biden campaign. An official with the now Harris campaign said it visually monitors and protects against cyber threats, not aware of any security breaches to our system. You know Joe probably clicked on some email. You know that he did. The FBI also say that the Trump campaign has been targeted by the Iranians. When we come back, we'll focus on the state of Texas. The state fair last week announcing they're going to ban guns, even for those who have a license to carry. Well, Chairman Dustin Burrows isn't too happy about that. We'll visit with him next when we come back on the Chad Hasty Show.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media. Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Final hour. Man, it's going by quickly today. It's going to go by quickly all week as we have a lot of stuff to get to throughout the week. Have some great guests who will be joining us throughout the week as well. And later on in the week, we'll tell you how you can have an opportunity to even see Donald Trump Jr. speaking in Lubbock, for those of you in the Hub City and around the area. So it's a full week of interviews and political news, and taking a turn to what's happening here in the state. Last week, we got into this after the State Fair of Texas announced that they were going to ban license to carry holders from carrying guns. Now, you may be surprised to learn that you are actually allowed to carry a firearm inside the State Fair of Texas if you had a license to carry. But because of an incident that happened last year, they've decided to go back on that. Well, today, Chairman Dustin Burrows submitted a letter along with, I think, about 70 other signatures on it, going out to the State Fair and telling them, well, here's our opinion. We've got Chairman Dustin Burrows here on the program. Welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
Chad, I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me back on.
Are you, we're just, we're a few months away from the election. And then after that, we're just a few months away from you heading back down to Austin. Are you ready?
Absolutely. We're working on a good legislative agenda, getting some things in order, some good conservative ideas out there. And, and then sometimes things show up, on your Twitter feed or on your text messages, like, State Fair of Texas deciding to ban lawful, law-abiding citizens from carrying on their premise. And so you kind of go a different direction because you realize there's something just wrong with it.
Yeah, well, and this goes back to, making sure that we secure our rights and that we have that right to protect ourselves. The State Fair of Texas, last year, I guess they had a shooting that occurred, on the location. It was their first shooting since 1988. The person who had the gun was not a license to carry holder, was not even supposed to have a weapon from what I've read. And now the State Fair, they came out, Chairman, and they said to make it a more family-friendly environment, we're banning people.
And I think he brought that gun through a hole in the fence.
Yes.
So it would not have been detected through any of the entrances.
Correct.
Now, look, what bothers me about this is they are perpetuating this narrative that those of us who want to actually arm ourselves and carry are somehow dangerous. That we're somehow the ones dangerous to society.
Yeah, we're the problem.
We're the problem, and it makes world safer by disarming us before we actually go onto the property. And this is the State Fair of Texas. You know, one of the biggest events in the entire state, and they call themselves the State Fair of Texas, and perpetuating this narrative. So 70 plus of my colleagues, incoming, current, both House and senators, good to see us all working together, sent them a letter giving us some statistics, giving us some basis for why this actually is not a good policy, why it actually makes people more at risk, why it is more dangerous to do this, and suggesting to them very strongly they reconsider their position.
Do you expect to hear back from them? Do you want to hear back from them?
No, I have. So they actually I tweeted out on Friday. I love X. Is it an X now or a tweet?
They're both.
Well, I said something when it first came out on Friday. I did hear from them. They're obviously following this story. There's been pleasantries, but, they're basically, now they've got a letter. They see a lot of names on it, a lot of people from both chambers who basically said, wait a second. You guys are not making your patrons more safe. You're actually making them more dangerous, and the statistics bear that out. Let me just go over some of the statistics, Chad, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Of mass shootings that have occurred in this country, 82% of them since 1988 have happened in gun-free zones. And since 1950, 94% of all mass shootings have happened in gun-free zones. Then you couple that, in gun-free zones, 35% of mass shootings have been stopped by armed citizens. 51% of all mass shootings have been stopped in citizens. That's gun-free zones and non-gun-free zones. Yeah. So more than half of all mass shootings have been stopped by armed citizens. And license to carry holders are not the ones getting arrested and in trouble. In fact, conviction rates are lower for LTC holders than our police officers.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, again, those who have a license to carry, you go through the background check. These are, responsible members of the community by and large, good people who just want to protect themselves, their families, their loved ones, whether they're going out to the fair or whether they're going to a grocery store. They just want to be able to protect themselves. And like you said earlier, this, when you have this announcement that no one can carry, license to carry, that means, you're pushing this narrative that all gun owners are bad people or will do something to cause an issue. And they haven't had any issues at all, zero issues at the state fair with license to carry holders.
100%. And we know this is the harsh reality that we live in today. There are people who want to do evil, and they do target gun-free zones. By having it not be a gun-free zone is statistically more likely a mass shooting would not take place there. It is a very, very important concept. And here's the question I have, and we're looking into it right now, and I'll give you a little bit of, maybe breaking news, maybe not. I have some questions about the legality of what the State Fair of Texas is even doing. I know they're a private 501c3, and private property should be able to do what they want with their private property, but it's also on land owned by municipal government. And just because, and by the way, government can only not allow you to carry in a limited number of places. Those are specified in the penal code, very specified. And you can't always get around that just because you form a 501c3 private management company and put that responsibility in there. There's a 2016 Attorney General opinion by General Paxton that basically says, if it's private property and it's just a lease, you can still have those rights to basically, or you have the private property ability to put up a, no carry place. However, if they're so intricately involved, maybe you can't. Well, I have a real question, and we're looking at it. Has this become so intricately involved with other government that they may have forfeited the ability to do that? And this and other fairs across the entire state.
Well, and I think another side of this is the State Fair of Texas is huge. Right? If you've never been before, you have people parking all over the place. You have people parking on site, you have people parking off site, you have people selling, hey, park here for $5 or not $5 an hour, $10, $15 an hour, and we'll watch your car for you. Now, if you're the state fair, you're telling people, a lot of folks who probably carry firearms, you've got to leave that car. You've got to leave that firearm in your car. How many times have you heard police agencies go, please don't leave firearms in your car. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, Chad, you absolutely right. That is one of the absolute unintended consequences of this, right? I mean, I'm sure they're well-intentioned. I'm sure they're buying into the false narrative. But having people leave their firearms in their car, they're going to be broken into. I mean, the place that the State Fair is in Dallas is a place where cars get broken into. Many fairgrounds are.
Yeah.
And with theirs in there, they're certainly going to be used later on to commit crimes, maybe violent crimes, other things. And so it is not a better place. And it is more secure on the person of a license to carry for more than one reason, but certainly not left in the automobile or easily broken into, taken, and things like that.
Yeah. If this matter isn't resolved before the state fair opens up, if they stick to their position or stick to their guns on this, is there anything the legislature maybe will look at in the upcoming session?
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that we always need to be looking at. What gun-free zones can be allowed, and if there is local governments that are trying to kind of circumvent where it is by basically just privatizing or 50C3ing, which is not really privatizing. It's finding a management board and a charity organization to do it. There's a real question about should they. I think we're going to have this debate. This is a good debate for our state to be having right now. I believe 100% that I am more safe in a place that is not a gun-free zone, not just because of myself, but others around me. Some people disagree with it, and I think they're just flat wrong.
Yeah. State Representative Chairman Dustin Burrows getting ready to head down to Austin this next year for another session, and of course just getting things ready by sending off a letter to the State Fair of Texas. I appreciate you doing it because as someone who does go, I go once a year. My family, they always go, and so many people who do go, and this will affect, I think, not only the State Fair, but we have a lot of other fairs that occur around the state. Some that allow firearms, others that do not allow firearms. And I think everyone kind of needs to get on the same page here.
We'll try to fix it for them if they don't fix it for themselves.
Yeah, very good. Chairman Dustin Burrows, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chad.
Good to see you.
Bye.
When we come back, your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, the Trump ground game. What is it looking like? And is the Trump campaign beginning to turn the numbers back in their favor? We'll look at the latest polling. Plus, our friend Glenn Beck has an incredible new book out. We'll talk to him about that. But also, what's going to happen to the country? Because something that Glenn focuses on a lot is the future. We'll talk to him about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
Back on the Chad Hasty Show. Texter coming in right during the break. Chad just turned on the show, caught the end of the talk on firearms at the fairgrounds. Question, has there been a problem in the past with fairground shootouts? It's never been a problem. What's the issue? Well, you have the State Fair of Texas last week they announced that one of the new rules, they have a bunch of new rules at the state fair, including, some times where those who are under the age of 18 won't be allowed into the fair. But they've got some new rules at the State Fair of Texas that says you cannot carry a firearm in the state fair. Now, in past years, if you had a license to carry, and there have been numerous times where I've walked into the State Fair of Texas with my license to carry, I've had a firearm on me, and I'm allowed to go through. And that's been the rule. The rule has been if you have a license to carry, you are allowed to carry at the state fair. This year, they're saying, no, you can't do that after last year's shooting that occurred. There was a shooting that occurred at the fairgrounds. It was at night. And someone had snuck a gun through a hole in the fence to someone else to go and they got into a fight. They got into an argument, and there was a shooting. No one died. It was the first shooting since 1988. At the state fair. And everyone thought the issue was done. And then late last week, the director of the state fair came out and said, well, in the interest of being family friendly, to have a family friendly environment, we're not going to allow people to carry guns. And it's this liberal attitude. And she even said, we respect the rights of people. No, you don't. If you're banning someone's right, you don't respect their rights. It's almost the politician's way of saying, bless your heart. Or with all due respect. With all due respect, I'm going to say something that's not very respectful to you. But I said with all due respect, so you can't be offended. Or like when a Democrat politician gets up there and says, I hunt. So that means you're not supposed to criticize them for anything when it comes to the issue of guns. But no, she said last week, so we respect the rights of Texans. We respect the rights of people, but we just want to create a more family-friendly environment. BS. I don't think so. You're just going with the liberal narrative, which is not surprising. By the way, where's the Republican mayor of Dallas? Where's he at on this? Why isn't he sounding off on this? 806-680-2790. Mary in Lubbock asking about Kamala Harris. If she's concerned about Fox News, how will she face our enemies and non-allies? Well, she probably won't handle them very well. Another texture, the liberals are lying for each other because they know the media won't call them out. Some of us conservatives never lie for anyone. Another texture. As Mark in California asking about the fairground, it's been a non-issue. Again, you have to conceal carry. I don't think they allow open carry. You've got to conceal carry, which I'm fine with. I don't open carry anyway, but you got to conceal carry, and you have to have a license to carry in order to do it at the fair. And I've been fine with that. I think it's been a fine rule. There's, again, there's nothing has gone wrong. No one's fumbled their gun away. No one has, exchanged a gun for a Fletcher's corn dog or anything like that. No one's gotten mad at the line to get a corn dog and just started shooting up in the air. I mean, no one's acted irresponsibly. Everything has been just fine. Texter, first time listener, long time texter. You better be carrying in Fair Park. In sunny South Dallas after dark. You know what? It doesn't even matter if it's after dark anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be anywhere. Crime happens all the time now. Crime happens all the time. In broad daylight. I can't tell you how many stories I look at out of, again, some of the larger cities, especially Houston, when people are getting gas. Let me tell you something. Never run out of gas in Houston. The amount of times I've seen people carjacked or robbed or shot at Houston gas stations in broad daylight. What the hell is going on in Houston? I need to send Michael Berry, going asking him about that. The amount of times I see Houston gas stations in the news in broad daylight, people getting shot at, people getting robbed, carjacked. It doesn't matter. If it's during the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's at night. To me, you don't want to be anywhere without your firearm. You want to be able to protect yourself. You want to be able to protect loved ones. And I sure don't want to leave it in my car. I sure don't want to leave it in my vehicle. And if you haven't been to the state fair, there are times where the parking lots get full. The official parking lots get full. So you got to park off-site. How much security do you think they have off-site? They don't even have great security on-site. But then you have to park off-site. Sometimes in the lot next door to people. You don't know that. They're going to say they're going to watch your car for you. You have no idea. You're just paying somebody $30 for the privilege of parking. You come back, your vehicle's busted into. Hope you didn't have a Glock in there. (806-680-2790). It's just dangerous. Anywhere you go, you do not want to have. You do not want to leave your gun in your vehicle like that. You have to remember all the fights of the Texas OU game. No shootings. No, of course not. Again, people have handled themselves well at the fair. There have been, people get into fights and all that, but they're not it's not the wild, wild west. No one's shooting any carnies over over their, prizes. This line's too damn long. I'm going to fire a couple of warning shots. Get people out of line. Scare them. Just have big text tell people not to shoot each other. How about that? Howdy, folks. Remember, at the state fair, we don't shoot each other. Just have big text say that. We'll be right back.
Call in to the Chad Hasty Show at 1-800-687-0790. The Chad Hasty Show, broadcasting on the Texas Town Square Media Network. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Well, howdy, neighbors. Texas feeder catalogs reporting prices steady to $4 higher. Cattle futures were down. August live cattle futures down 93 cents, closed at 183.32. August feeder cattle futures down $2 and a dime, closed at 244.40. October cotton futures were up, closing at 68.29. September wheat futures down 6 cents, closed at 5.48 a bushel. September corn down 6 cents and closed at 3.83. And August soybean futures down 16 cents, closed at $10.12 a bushel. August soybean meal futures down $8, closed at $318.30 per ton. August class 3 milk futures up 8 pennies, closed at $20.56 a hundred. September crude oil futures up $2.82, trading at 79.66 a barrel. And the Dow Jones is down 140 points. Closed at 39,357. And that's market roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters. Sold.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. You're listening to The Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to The Chad Hasty Show. By the way, thanks again to State Representative Dustin Burrows. Now we take a look at what else is going on in the state of Texas. And joining us, the editor of QuorumReport.com, we've got Scott Braddock joining us here on the program, which, Scott, we were reminded once again from Representative Dustin Burrows, it's not going to be long before there's statewide news with the Texas legislature because, well, there's never really a break in Texas politics, but they're officially going to get underway in a few months down in Austin.
Well, that's true, and I can tell you that having hosted the #1 politics podcast in Texas for 8 years running now, that when we started the show, I remember some folks asked me that they would say, "Well, when they're not in session in Austin, what will you even talk about?" And I said, you got to trust me on this. All right, y'all leave this to me. In fact, it kind of feels like a session today. The Public Education Committee in the Texas House is still taking testimony on school vouchers, which of course will be a hot topic in the next legislative session, as you know all too well, and your listeners know. The Public Education Chairman, Brad Buckley, gavelled in the committee earlier this morning around 9 o'clock and had said that he was hoping to have all this wrapped up by 6, but that sounded kind of unrealistic to me, and so he's still there listening to testimony. I got to tell you, it's a lot of the same arguments, Chad. I tweeted out earlier today that you don't expect any new arguments on school vouchers because there aren't any. Everybody has heard all these arguments, right? And as you have pointed out here on the show, the question is always really what is the plan actually going to look like? The governor has been going around acting as if he has the votes to pass this, although it was interesting. I saw he was interviewed here in the past couple of weeks. I think it was on Channel 11 in Dallas-Fort Worth, KTVT on CBS TV up there. He had said that he thought that he was doing pretty well after the primaries, after he had defeated some of the anti-voucher Republicans, primarily in rural areas. But then, Chad, he said, and again, he's hedging, he said he was also kind of banking on the idea that Republicans might pick up some seats this fall in the Texas House, which seems like a stretch to me in just looking at the map. The governor was saying that there are at least 3 seats that Republicans might pick up, and one of them that he pointed to, which is down along the border in the Uvalde area. It's a seat that's held by a Democrat right now. Tracy King is retiring, and I think that's the one Republicans probably have the best chance to pick up. But the other 2 that he pointed to, including one in the Corpus Christi area, just that one, for example, last time around was a 10-point race for the Democrats. So I don't think it's quite ready to turn Republican yet. So I think the governor even acknowledges at this point that he still has some work to do.
When it comes to the when it comes to this hearing that's going on, I know there were some who were complaining that this was going on right before the school year began, or I guess in the Metroplex and in some areas school starts today. Is anyone talking about that in these hearings? Has that been a big issue?
It has been one of the things that came up, and it came up from some very conservative activists, actually, who said that they were against school vouchers. As you know, Chad, this has never been one of those things that is sort of organized neatly, where it's liberals who are against it and conservatives who are for it, or Republicans or Democrats, in partisan fashion, being for or against this. There are a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives who have arguments against it, including those who argue that it's simply too expensive to start a new program that would cost as much as $22 billion every 2 years in the state of Texas if you had every one of the 5.4 million or so students who are in K-12 education eligible for a voucher. One of those activists said that it was, you got to love this, Chad, one of them said it was not just shameful to have the testimony held on the first day of school for some of the biggest school districts, but that it was, quote, tyranny to cut it off at 6 o'clock tonight and not allow some people to testify. And that might be one reason that the chairman is still taking testimony here at about 6:40 in the evening.
When it comes to some of course, you got this. This is going to be something that's just completely debated and you know, it's just going to be hammered out in the during the session. There's going to be probably a big fight over it. Devil's going to be in the details to see some of this as well. When we look at, there was a very interesting story where we haven't talked a lot about this race between Ted Cruz and Colin Allred. I think one of the more interesting stories lately has been a Democrat coming out and supporting Ted Cruz, and you don't really hear much more else in this in this race at all. Scott, are you kind of surprised that this race is as dead as it is right now?
Almost nobody asked me about it, Chad, other than someone as astute as yourself, wondering what might be happening with it. The Harris County DA, a Democrat, Kim Ogg, who, by the way, lost her Democratic primary, so might be some sour grapes there, but she came out and endorsed Senator Cruz for re-election. I thought it was interesting that Senator Cruz is, for some reason, among certain folks of the grassroots of the Republican Party, they'll say he's a conservative fighter while he's touting support from a Democrat. The same people would say that Speaker Dade Phelan is a rhino because he's elected as Speaker with Democratic support. I just found that interesting. But with this race, it's just nothing happening with it. There's no, I try to check on the pulse of these things, Chad, and when I put my finger where the pulse ought to be with that race, there just isn't one. Now, we should remind ourselves that for the vast majority of people, even most folks who pay attention to politics, the races really don't start until after both of the, in a presidential year, until after both of the major conventions are over with. We've had the Republican convention, the RNC. DNC is coming up real quick here. And then after Labor Day, that's when you get that starting gun. You'll really start to see television ads all over the place for both Colin Allred and Ted Cruz. Both of them have, between them, cumulatively tens of millions of dollars to be able to spend on TV in markets big, medium, and small all around the state, and they'll have that mad dash to the finish. But when you think about this, my colleague, Jeremy Wallace at the Houston Chronicle, he always points this out. We only have about 40 days now until the first ballots start to go out when you're talking about mail ballots and military ballots. And so the election might seem a ways off at this point, but it really is right around the corner, and you will start to see these campaigns ramp up. And unlike a presidential race, a race for the Senate or these races for legislative seats and congressional races, et cetera, they don't have the ability to capture people's attention in the same way that the presidential race does, which, of course, as you know, the race for the White House just never seems to stop, right? It's always going on. But for some of these other down-ballot races, we've got a ways to go before they really get going in a way that makes you think, man, this is ever going to end.
Yeah. Tell us what else what else you're working on, what else you're kind of getting ready for before the big Democrat convention is coming up next week.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch what happens there, but it does seem that it's all kind of settled. There was the potential that the Democratic convention was going to be, some sort of a real disaster for the Democrats with, just a wide open convention and no one sure who was going to be the nominee. That's all over with. And to see the Democrats in array this way, that they have just really seen their party come alive here in the last month with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket as the presumptive nominee. Something, as you said previously, there were a lot of folks, including yourself, who thought that Biden, would not or might not be the Democratic nominee. But I don't know that anybody really predicted that the Democrats would just come, back to life in this way, with all of the organizing, fundraising to be, surging ahead of Trump in various, swing states, and you and I are old enough to remember when all of our text messages, on that day when Donald Trump had been shot at and was shot in the ear in Pennsylvania, a lot of folks were thinking that the race is over now. He's just going to win. And that doesn't get talked about in nearly the same way that it did before. Not that people aren't still asking questions about it. And it's still a factor in the race. But so, the the month or 6 weeks or whatever since that's happened, it seemed like a decade ago, Chad. And just seems like so many developments since then that the entire landscape is different.
It is. The assassination attempt on Trump, you could call it memory hold, you could call it whatever. I would think that we were at a point at some point in this country where a presidential candidate getting shot, even shot at an assassination attempt, would have made people, I don't know, it would have shocked a nation for a month. It would have shocked the nation for a long time. And now it's like, yeah, but it's time to move on. I mean, we're not shocked as a nation, it seems, over anything now.
It's an instant gratification country. It's a country that is, in a lot of ways dominated by whatever the news cycle is at that moment and what's in the news. And when you have the president of the United States drop out of the race 1 week after an historic event like that, it can change the entire dynamic. And, I do think that the Trump-Vance campaign, they're getting in their jabs here and there when it comes to the new VP selection on the Democratic side, Tim Walz, and on Harris herself. But I would say right now, if you had to handicap it, the momentum is with the Democrats. But again, once we get into, the real last push for the race, once the DNC is over with, then you will see both sides come out with everything that they've got, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of television, those swing states and other places, and all of the campaign stops everywhere. Then we'll really have an idea what the shape of this race is.
Yep, I believe so. Scott, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again. Yeah, we'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good. Talk soon.
All right, thank you very much. That's Scott Braddock, editor of QuorumReport.com. We'll be right back.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at KFYO.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, the Trump ground game. What is it looking like? And is the Trump campaign beginning to turn the numbers back in their favor? We'll look at the latest polling. Plus, our friend Glenn Beck has an incredible new book out. We'll talk to him about that. But also, what's going to happen to the country? Because something that Glenn focuses on a lot is the future. We'll talk to him about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
You ever have that feeling that you're about to sneeze and it's like right there and then it just doesn't happen? That's what I was going through there, Nick. And I feel like everyone gets that face too of like, turn off the microphone. No, leave it on. It's fine. Not going to sneeze now. It's an annoying feeling. It's an annoying. By the way, if you're looking for something entertaining to watch, and you have the Netflix, Nick, do y'all have Netflix? Okay, all right. I think you and your fiance would like this. You don't like a lot of my suggestions. I know that when I tell you to go and watch a movie, because I still don't believe you've watched any movie that I've told you to go and watch. No, but on. My wife and I watched this last night, and we had a great time watching it. It's the exact title of it eludes me, but it's something to the effect of what's going on in the mind of dogs. And it's like a brand new documentary about how they're studying how dogs think, what dogs can learn, and all kinds of stuff, and what goes on in the dog brain. And it's fantastic if you like dogs. If you're like a cat person, you may not care. But if you're a dog person, it was fascinating to watch. So Nick, if you're later on this week or this weekend, check out, it's something to the effect of how dogs think, or the inside the dog's mind. I don't know, something like that. It's on Netflix. And we had fun watching that last night. 806-680-2790. Oh, how about this? The White House announcing that Biden would sign a bill eliminating a tax on tips. President Biden would, quote, absolutely sign legislation to eliminate taxes on tipped wages if it made it to his desk, the White House announced today, embracing a policy first proposed by former President Trump and echoed by Vice President Harris. Now, let me tell you something. I will give the Hill some credit for putting that in the first paragraph. I'm shocked that they did. Jean-Pierre argued that a proposal would align with Biden's efforts to support working Americans and build the economy from the bottom up and middle out. Biden had not previously spoken about the concept publicly. Trump first raised the idea in June at a rally in Nevada, which is a battleground state home to thousands of service industry workers. Republican lawmakers quickly followed Trump's suggestion by introducing a bill aimed at eliminating taxes on tips. Critics of the proposal have warned it could further grow the national debt. But now Harris is all for it, and now the White House is all for it. And watch as they take the issue away from Trump. Just watch. And Trump will claim credit for it, but the media, by and large, they will not give him credit. Just watch. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay healthy. Be safe out there. God bless you all. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 5 p.m.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.